Are we rolling? Yes, we are. What's up, guys? It's your boy McKinley Crain here, and today I'm going to be doing my spoiler-free movie review of the recent 2021 sequel to Fear Street 1994. Well, it's actually called the movie that the movie I'm reviewing is a sequel to is actually called Fear Street Part 1, 1994. Yeah, but you can say it either way. But I'm not reviewing that movie today. I already reviewed it like a couple days ago. Today I will be doing my spoiler-free movie review of Fear Street Part 2, 1978. Now let's get into it. Anyway, so this movie is a sequel, and it's also kind of a prequel, if you think about it, to Fear Street 1994. In this movie, the main characters from the first movie, like at the beginning of the movie, go to an apparent survivor of, an apparent survivor of a chaotic, kind of like killing spree situation, massacre that happened back in 1978. And ask and try to get her to help them. And while they're doing that, she basically explains what happened. She explains the backstory of what really happened back in 1978, and that's most of the movie. That takes up most of the movie. That's why it's kind of like a prequel, if you know what I mean. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. It actually makes this movie better. Anyway, so this movie stars Sadie Sink as Ziggy Verman. Well, the 1978 version of Ziggy Verman, to be exact. The lady who they went to, who was the survivor, and at the beginning of the movie, that was still set in 1994, was Ziggy Verman, but it was the 1994 version of Ziggy Verman, the 30 to 40-ish, the Ziggy Verman who's in her 30s or 40s, I don't know. Anyway, and so basically, this movie tells the story of what happened to teenage Ziggy Verman when she went to summer camp, and how she dealt with a killer that the same evil that was causing people in 1994 to become killers, how she dealt with that. So how she dealt with the killer. And let me just say, this film was terrific, and it was better, much better, in my opinion, than Fear Street Part 1, 1994. Fear Street Part 1, like 1994, don't get me wrong, was a great movie. It was like, I gave it a score of an 88% out of 100%, which is the equivalent of an A-, like in my review for it. If you didn't already watch that, it was a great movie. It was a fun movie. But this one's even better, in my opinion. This one takes everything that was great about the original film in this trilogy and improves it. Everything. The characters are better. I mean, at the beginning of the movie, some of the characters, like, not like, the main characters, but like some of like the side characters are intentionally unlikable. Not all of the side characters, but some of them are, like, intentionally unlikable. Like, the movie wants you to, like, not like these characters at first, and then later in the movie, these characters, like, become more likable. Like, they actually become likable characters, as we find out more about their, like, backstories and motivations, and, we dive deeper into their personalities. Again, that's actually good. That's great. I love how the movie does this. It makes the movie even better, makes the story even better. It makes these characters so much more interesting. Anyway, this movie had great characters in it. Ziggy Verman is great. Her sister is great. And then all the side characters are great. And I even thought that the killer in this one was better than the killer in the last one. And I can't really say why because of spoilers, and this is a spoiler-free review. But I just think that the killer in this one, like, was actually, like, in a more interesting situation, if you know what I mean, than the killer in the last one was. I'm not saying that the killer in Fear Street Part 1 wasn't great. He was a great villain. Well, he was a terrible person, obviously, but I'm not talking about, like, whether or not he was a good person. Actually, no, he was being mind-controlled, so no, he wasn't a terrible person. It wasn't his fault. He was being mind-controlled, and that's not a spoiler, everybody knows that. He was being mind-controlled, so, like, he couldn't really do anything about it. But, the thing that was controlling him was an evil thing, a terrible thing. But a great villain, story-wise and movie-wise, if you think about it. And the villain in this movie is even better. Or should I say the person that the source of evil is using as a human puppet to do its evil deeds in this film is even better than the person that was being used as the human puppet was in the last film. Anyway, this film was near perfect in my opinion. Is it perfect? No, but it's near perfect. It's a near masterpiece. It's one of the most fun films I've seen, like, this year. And it's one of the best films I've seen this year. And to say it exceeded my expectations would be an understatement. I expected this movie to be great, and I actually expected it to be, like, better than 1994, and don't get me wrong, it was. But, like, it was much better than I expected it to be. Like, much more great than I expected it to be. I expected it to be great, but not as great as it was, if that makes sense. But this movie is just so awesome. It's got a great soundtrack, and 1994 had a great soundtrack too, but I feel like the songs in this movie like really just kind of match more with the tone than the songs in 1994 did. And don't get me wrong, the songs in 1994 like were went along great with like all the movie scenes, but you know the ones in, like I said, like this movie improved on everything from the original. It did everything better than the original. And I think there's a lot of really great acting. Like, it's all the acting in this movie is great. But I do have like, you know, favorite characters and who gave favorite performances. I do have favorite characters and favorite performances in this movie. Like, I think that Sadie Sink gives the best performance overall, and she's just my favorite character in the whole movie. But I also think that I also think that everybody else in this movie gives a great performance. Like, also give a great performance. And this movie just had a lot of smart writing and great writing, just like the original, but like even better writing. And this film was just so fun. It was just so gripping in my opinion. I loved it. It was just so fun. It was just so exciting. And you wanted like the main characters to like make it out, like, you know, make it out of this situation alive, although you already knew that one did at the beginning of this film. Well, obviously. But like you actually care about these characters in this film, and don't get me wrong, I cared about the characters very, very much in, like, you know, the previous Fear Street movie before this film. The characters were great. I did care about them a lot, but not as much as I cared about the characters in this one. Like, the characters were just much better in this one and much more complex. Not saying the ones in '94 weren't complex. They were very three-dimensional and very complex, but just like I said, like, this film improves everything. It takes everything great from its predecessor and just makes it better. And I think that the characters in here are just so fun to watch, and they work, and they all have great chemistry. The ones in '94 had great chemistry too, just not as great chemistry. And I love the character of Ziggy. I think she's a bad A, and she's awesome, and she really like she's part of what makes this movie so great. If it weren't for if her character wasn't in this movie, it'd still be a great movie, but it wouldn't be as great as it was. Or is, because, you know, it still exists. It's not like the movie existed and doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't even make any sense. This movie, in my opinion, will be considered by many as like a cult classic in the future, like a horror cult classic. That's just my opinion, and I believe that the previous one will too, just not as much as this one will be considered. I was just blown away by how great this movie was. I was beyond impressed. I was beyond over impressed, and this movie is just so fun, so gripping, so compelling. It works so well, and the humor in it is great and just awesome, and even better than the humor in 94 was. And you know, the horror elements, since this is a horror movie, were even better than they were in 94. And the ending was just wild and awesome, and really blew me away and made me want to like see the third film in this Netflix trilogy of comedy horror movies, like of the Fear Street movies. It made me want to see Fear Street Part 3 1966 even more. And speaking of Fear Street Part 3 1966, not 1966, 1666. That movie looks like it's gonna be like mega darker than the first two are. And I'm really excited for that. I love both of these movies, but I love this movie that I'm doing my spoiler-free review of, which is 1978, so much more than I love 1994. I love them both. They're both very fun movies, very enjoyable and gripping movies, and engaging movies. But when push comes to shove, if I had to take one of these, if I could only take one of the two to an island with me, to like a desert island with me, like I'd take 1978, because it was just so much better, and this movie was just so gripping, and it just all works. This movie just works. Everything in this movie goes so well together, and just works and provides an engaging and entertaining and awesome and spectacular and just fun time, fun ride of a movie, wild ride of a movie. And both of these films are very memorable in my opinion, but this one is even more memorable than 94 is. And I was just blown away by how good this movie was. And I know I've already said that, but I feel like I had to say that again. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm gonna give this movie a 98% out of a 100%, which is the equivalent of an A+. Like, subscribe, join the notification squad. I will return.